The most feared shooter on Chicago's Southside got backdoored in his own hood. He died in a parked car on the same corner that raised him, cut down by the people he ran with. The streets that built him were the streets that killed him. The only question left is how they got him to sit still long enough. Chicago's South Side in the early 2010s was a war zone with a name the whole country would learn. They called it Chirac, and the name came from the math. By 2012, the city was clearing more than 500 homicides a year, and on the South Side, the killings clustered into a fight between two sets that used to be one. The gangster disciples and the black disciples had split the map into flags and lines, block by block, alley by alley. South of 63rd was one country, north of 59th was another. You did not cross without a reason, and the reason was almost always smoke. The papers counted the murder rate, the blocks counted names, and every name went up on a wall or into a song. Videos of kids holding guns bigger than their arms went viral, and insults traded online turned into funerals inside a week. Drill music turned that war into a soundtrack. Rappers named names, counted the dead, and dared the living, and the songs moved between gangs like messages. When Chief Keef put out I Don't Like, the sound went national, and back home it played like a battle cry. On the Black Disciple side sat O Block 300 and 600, the sets that produced Chief Keef, Lil Durk, and King Von. Across from them on the Gangster Disciple side stood STL, EBT, 0551, Young Money, and MOB. Those names carried weight on the ground long before the internet learned what they meant. MOB stood for Men of Business, and it held 56th through 59th along South Wabash and State, boxed in on every side by rivals. Inside that stretch sat a smaller pocket, the block called Woo World, named for a fallen member. That is where Mo Baby came up. He repped MOB under the Gangster Disciples, tied in with Oral 51 Young Money, and the alliance shared one set of enemies, the Black Disciples out of 600 and O Block. The lines ran tight. 10 minutes on the road out of MOB carried you through a dozen wars, and the short walk from 59th and State to 60th and King Drive dropped you inside 600. By the time Baby was a teenager, the block had buried so many that revenge ran on its own. Nobody had to give the order. He moved different from the rest of them. He didn't rap, didn't chase followers, didn't post. He said little and smiled less, and that silence became the thing people noticed first. Nobody could find his face. Everybody knew his name. He came up under three older members, Scrap, Dusky, and Ruger, and it was Scrap who set the mold. Scrap was the muscle, Dusky the charmer, Ruger the steady hand, and Baby took something from each of them. When Scrap, whose name was Brian Weekly, got killed in Washington Park in 2014, MOB lost his front man, and the set turned to Baby. When MOB needed something handled, they called him first, and he handled it without a word. Around the same time, he linked with Earl 51 Melly, one of the most feared shooters in the city, a renegade who answered to no set. Melly taught him how to move and how to shoot, and the two trained together like a coach and his student. By the time Baby turned 20, the words "Baby's coming" cleared a room. He carried no fame like a rapper, and in those blocks, his name still landed like bad luck. His work carried a name of his own. He never sprayed a block. He treated a target like a job and finished it clean, and the set started calling him the mob sniper. His reputation got built on bodies the whole city could name. On April 9, 2014 in Englewood, Chief Keef's cousin Mario Hess, known as Blood Money, was visiting family on 56th near Elizabeth Street. He had signed to Interscope and come home. Two cars rolled up slow. More than a dozen rounds hit the block, and Blood Money died before the ambulance arrived. His cousin next to him survived. The street called it MOB business, and two names surfaced fast: Mo Baby and a shooter called Killer Kai. People first tied the key to a female STL shooter, Gakira Barnes, and they had it wrong. This was a different key, a man out of MOB. Police charged nobody, but the set gave Baby the credit, and after that his name meant fear. They started calling him the ghost of the Southside. By the end of 2014, everyone in the trenches knew who he was. The black disciples out of 600 marked him a top target. The gangster disciples treated him as the man carrying the war forward. A year later, he did it again. On July 21st, 2015, a 600-member named Stello drove a Dodge Charger too deep into MOB territory and stopped at a red light on 59th and State. A car pulled up beside him. Shooters came from the car and from the sidewalk. The glass went out, and Stello died in the seat without firing a shot. A remix by FBG Duck and Ruger put the killing into a line the whole city recognized. Police reports named a MOB associate called E-Boy, but inside the set, the hit belonged to Baby, and 600 moved his name to the top of their list. New tags went up on the walls, marking the score. On the ground, getting credited for a kill like that only raised him higher. By then, Baby was a legend, for one reason as much as any other. Nobody could see him coming, and nobody could put him anywhere after. He kept no public pages, sat for no interviews, left no photo online. Loud shooters got caught. The quiet ones lasted. Street talk put at least 4 bodies on him, and probably more that never got traced to anybody. His name came up every time a black disciple got touched, and he never confirmed a thing. In a war run on noise, his silence was the weapon. The loud ones got charged. The one who said nothing kept moving. Early 2016 took that away from him. A Chicago videographer named Zach Stoner, known as Zach TV, built his channel, giving gang members a chance to speak, and he had walked into O Block, STL, and 051 with a camera. One day, he pulled up on some 051 Young Money affiliates, and Mo Baby was standing there. For the first time, the ghost sat in front of a lens. When the video dropped, the drill world finally put a face to the name, with threads and comment sections filling up as people connected that face to the stories. Years of invisibility ended in a few minutes of footage. 3 months later, the streets closed the loop. On June 13, 2016, Baby sat in a parked car near 59th and Wabash on his own block in the place he felt safest. Tension had been building for weeks. A dice game gone wrong with a man named Pyro, cousin to a MOB figure called Nut, and older heads who had started to feel that Baby had gotten too big for a soldier. That night, the shots came from close range, from more than one gun, before he could reach the weapon beside him. He died in the car, in the hood that raised him, among the people he trusted. The first guess was 600, revenge for Stello. It fell apart within hours. No strange cars had come through. Nobody from outside had been near the block. Street News TV reported what the set already knew. The shooters wore the same color he did. Names came up, a member called Mobna, a cousin called Gucci, over personal beef or over a quiet decision that Baby had outgrown his place. Nobody got charged. They called it the back door, the kill that comes from inside the house. Nothing followed. No arrests, no investigation with teeth, no revenge run. The people who did it kept walking the same blocks. 600 took it as a win they never had to work for. Inside MOB, trust rotted, and 2 years later, Dusky was gone too, in a killing sum tied to the same rot. Baby's murder went into the unsolved pile, one more Chicago headline. The wider war kept moving, with 600 forming the Get Back Gang and MOB answering by catching a member named Waldo, the target shifting while the killing held steady. In 2019, his mentor, 051 Melly, would die the exact same way, betrayed at a party by people he trusted. Chicago's most feared shooter had gone out without firing a round, taken by his own set. How the block got there is a story about the city itself. The corner where Mo Baby died had been engineered for tragedy decades before he was born, and you can trace the machine straight down State Street. In the 1920s, roughly 300,000 Black Americans were pressed into a strip of the Southside 30 blocks long and never more than 7 blocks wide, hemmed in by covenants, by banks that refused loans, and when all else failed, by bombs. when the factories and the great Union stockyards that first drew that migration finally shut down, the yards killing their last animal in 1971, the jobs vanished, but the people stayed walled in place. In 1962, the city stacked 28 high-rise towers along a 2-mile run of State Street and called it the Robert Taylor Homes, buildings designed for 11,000 souls that swelled to 27,000, with cheap drywall you could kick through and elevators that froze in the Chicago winter. 3 gangs carved up those towers floor by floor: the Mickey Cobras, the Gangster Disciples, and the Black Disciples, and ran an open-air narcotics market that the Housing Authority once measured at $45,000 a day. When crack hit in the mid-'80s, it poured onto a fire that was already burning, and a boy with no factory left to walk into could stand on a corner and make more in an afternoon than his father made in a week. The towers came down by 2007, but the wiring stayed live, scattered across the same neighborhoods, waiting for the next generation to plug in. The people had come north chasing a promise. The Chicago Defender printed train schedules and job listings and told the sharecroppers of Mississippi and Alabama that the Southside was the promised land, and 500,000 of them rode the Illinois Central into the city over the decades that followed. What waited for them was rent no white neighborhood would charge, and a color line the city was ready to pour in concrete. When the Dan Ryan Expressway went in at the end of the 50s, the planners bent the route to run 14 lanes along the border between black and white Chicago, turning an invisible line into a wall no pedestrian could cross. The families who managed to buy homes signed contracts instead of mortgages, paying inflated prices to speculators who held the deed and evicted them on a single missed payment, draining billions in wealth out of the neighborhood before a single one of baby's generation drew breath. The ground was salted long before the shooting started. That generation inherited a single gang that had eaten itself into 2. The Gangster Disciples and the Black Disciples had once moved as one body, and by the time baby was old enough to understand the flags on his block, the old family had hardened into rival armies, staring at each other across streets you could cross in 5 minutes. On the map, it looked absurd. 59th and State to 60th and King Drive was a short walk, and yet that walk carried you out of MOB and deep into 600, past a border that had swallowed dozens of young men. Drill music grew straight out of that geography, raw grief and raw threat pressed onto beats, and it did something no gang war had done before. It made the violence public, searchable, and permanent. Every set wanted his name known. Every crew wanted payback for someone already in the ground. And the internet made certain no beef ever died quietly. A rapper could name a dead op in a verse, and the funeral it triggered would feed the next verse. And the cycle spun faster than anybody count the newspapers tried to keep. Into that noise, a different kind of soldier started to rise, one who understood that in a war lived out loud, the man who stayed quiet was the man who survived. Wu World was his whole world, a deadly little pocket of MOB territory folded between 56th and 59th near Wabash, carrying the name of a fallen homie like a badge stitched into the block itself. The set that held it prized 3 things above all: discipline, tight circles, and silence. And though men of business sounded like commerce, on those streets the business was bodies. Mo Baby absorbed the code before he ever built the reputation, and the men who shaped him gave him his different pieces. Scrap was the fearless one, the front man who would walk through rival territory without blinking, all volume and confidence and nerve, the face that made the other side uneasy the second he opened his mouth. Dusky carried the charisma that kept the younger ones motivated, and Ruger held the brains that planned things right. Baby watched all 3, but it was Scrap who burned his lesson deepest. And when Scrap died in Washington Park in 2014, the car easing up, the shots cracking fast, his body never making it off the pavement, something shifted inside the whole set, and inside Baby in particular. He went colder and sharper, as if he had made a silent promise to finish the war Scrap started. And from that day forward, when MOB needed something handled, they called Baby first. His talent found its final teacher in a man from the other side of the city, 051 Melly, one of the most feared and most hated shooters in Chicago. Melly belonged to nobody, a renegade respected across sets and trusted by almost none, and something in Baby clicked with him instantly. The older man became a mentor, teaching him to move smarter and shoot cleaner, and people saw the two of them together at gun ranges, staying ready, an apprenticeship where every finished lesson ended in real blood somewhere on the map. What Baby built out of all of it was a method that terrified even the people who admired him. He never sprayed a block hoping to hit something. He treated every target like a job with a clean finish, and the set stopped calling him a shooter and started calling him the mob sniper, the name sticking heavy because it fit the work. He didn't yell and he didn't rush, and when things went live, he was the first man to move, so exact that older heads who had put in years gave a 20-year-old their quiet respect. They said Baby was a mover, and in Wu world, a mover outranked a talker every time. The bodies that made his legend both landed on famous ground. When Blood Money died in that Inglewood ambush in April 2014, the streets read it instantly as MOB answering the Black disciples, and the whispers built Baby into the man who stood on the side and made sure Chief Keef's cousin never walked away. Blood Money had come home a signed artist with real momentum, and killing him on his own family's block near Elizabeth Street told the whole city that MOB could reach anybody, no matter how famous or how protected. Chief Keef's camp went furious. 600 in old block wanted blood, and within days, a female shooter out of STL, another key, got killed in retaliation for something she had nothing to do with, the kind of mix-up over mistaken names that kept the whole city's body count climbing. By the summer of 2015, MOB and 600 sat so close that the beef between them ran on its own, and every night somebody eased across the line to test how far he could push before the guns came out. When Stello rode his Charger too deep into MOB land that summer and stopped at that red light on 59th, the trap closed so tight that a grown man died in his own front seat without ever touching his gun. Shooters folding in from the sidewalk and the passing car, glass bursting across the intersection, casings ringing off the pavement before the echo could even reach the next block. FBG Duck and Ruger later carved the moment into a remix, a single bar the whole city understood as a message rather than a lyric, and inside MOB, the credit went to Baby. Every confirmed kill thickened the mystery around him because he answered none of it, posted none of it, and let the graffiti and the rumors do the talking. In a city where the loud ones ended up in cuffs or in caskets, his silence made him something close to untouchable. The ghost of MOB, seen by almost no one, felt by everyone. They started saying he wasn't chasing followers, he was chasing survival, and the phrase stuck because it was true. When he walked into a room, the temperature dropped, the laughter thinned, and everyone found a reason to pay attention. The younger ones tried to copy the low profile, staying off the internet and moving quiet, and almost none of them had the discipline to disappear the way he did. And a ghost only stays a ghost until somebody points a camera at him. By early 2016, the mystery had become the man, and the mystery was exactly what a camera was built to kill. Zach Stoner had made his name walking into the most dangerous corners of the city with a lens and a calm face, sitting down with sets that would have run anyone else off the block, building a channel where Chicago's drill world got to speak in its own voice. He had already been inside O Block, STL, and Earl 51, so when he linked with a group of Earl 51 Young Money affiliates and found Mo Baby standing among them, he could not have known what he was pointing his camera at. The room changed the moment it started rolling. Baby stayed calm, but the energy around him pressed down on everything, And even through the footage, you could watch Zach's easy confidence drain out of him. Baby spoke a few times, calling out fake rappers, reminding everyone that the real ones move in silence. And when the group shifted rooms mid-interview, the unease only tightened. People who had watched Zach walk fearless through half the Southside said it was the first time they ever saw him look nervous. When the video hit, the drill community detonated, comment sections and forums lighting up as thousands of people finally matched a face to the name they had feared for years. The camera light did what no rival's bullet ever managed. It made the ghost visible, and a visible ghost is just a target that hasn't been hit yet. The fallout split the drill world down the middle. Some argued that Zach's work handed enemies a face they had never been able to put to the name, making a hunted man that much easier to hunt. Others said, fame in these streets always finds you in the end, camera or no camera, and Baby had simply run out of shadow to stand in. Either way, the mystique that had kept him breathing was gone in a single upload. The danger, though, was never really coming from across the border. It was already sitting at his own table. For all the fear his name carried into 600 and O Block, the resentment that killed him grew inside Wu World, quiet and patient, in the space between a young soldier's rising legend and the older men who felt it eclipsing them. Baby was calm, respected, and untouchable in a way that outshined OGs who had put in far more years, and in a world built entirely on pride, being outshined by a 20-year-old curdled fast. Some read his silence as a threat, others read it as disrespect, a young killer who had stopped bowing to the men above him. The younger members had begun looking to Baby instead of to them, treating his word as the one that carried weight, and every ounce of respect that flowed to him felt like respect drained from someone older who believed he had earned it first. Then came the small thing that pried the whole rift open, a dice game that went wrong with a man named Pyro, cousin to a known MOB figure called Nut. Pride got into it, the argument ran hot, and Baby's cold streak turned the temperature to ice. On any other night, in any other hood, it would have meant nothing, but on a block already thick with jealousy, a bruised ego is a loaded gun. In the hood, the smallest things turn fatal once ego gets involved, and a dice table has started more Southside beef than any rival's block ever did. Baby had argued with the wrong ones, and without knowing it, he had sealed his own file. The night it happened, Wu World was doing nothing at all. Baby sat in a parked car near 59th and Wabash, on the block he had defended and bled for, scrolling his phone in the one place on earth he believed nothing could reach him. He was surrounded by faces he had grown up with. Deep inside territory he thought of as home, and that comfort was the trap. There was no rival car creeping the block, no shouted warning, no call to pull him out of the seat. The quiet simply broke, gunfire erupting from close range, more than one weapon, rounds finding him before his hand could reach the pistol beside him. When it stopped, the block went still in a way the block never went still, and the people who heard it said it never sounded like ops sliding through. It sounded personal, clean, and planned. Police found him gone in the car, dead in Wu Worlds, the ground that made him, betrayed in its rawest possible form. There would be no shootout and no clean version of the story anyone could tell, only a young man dead in a driver's seat, killed by hands he would have trusted with his own life an hour before. The lie went up first because the truth was too ugly to say out loud. The block let people believe it was 600 finally collecting on Stello, and for a few hours that story held. Then it collapsed under its own weight. No stranger's car had come through, nobody from outside had touched the block, and the whole thing had the fingerprints of the house all over it. Street News TV reported what the set had already accepted in silence. The shooters wore Baby's own color. The rumors ran faster than anyone could steer them, that a member called Mobna and his cousin Gucci had set him up over personal beef, or that older heads had made a colder calculation and moved to quiet him before his power grew past their control. Nobody spoke a name to the police. Everybody spoke it to each other. They gave it the name the streets keep for its worst betrayals. The back door, the silent kill that opens from inside the house, the one you never see because it comes from the people watching your back. It is the cleanest kind of murder a set can commit because it needs no witness willing to talk and leaves no enemy to strike back at. The house handles the house, and the block agrees to forget. What followed the back door was almost louder than the killing. Nothing happened. No arrests, no real investigation, no revenge mission from a set that had built its entire identity on revenge. Because the killers were too close to home, and everyone understood that talking would only move you to the front of the same line. The men responsible kept walking the same blocks, acting normal, holding the silence tight, while 600 celebrated a war they had won without lifting a finger. Inside MOB, paranoia spread through the alleys like smoke. Men who had moved in tight circles started moving alone because if Baby could get lined up, anybody could. Nobody hung in groups the way they used to, and everybody watched everybody. The silence that had been Baby's weapon became the whole set's condition because the one rule now was simple. Talking got you killed, and staying quiet bought you a little more time. Dusky took it hardest of all, having loved Baby like a brother. And when Dusky himself was killed in 2018, the whispers said older members had leaked his location. Another door opened from the inside, the set steadily eating its own. The wider war simply rolled on over the graves. 600 formed the Get Back Gang. MOB answered by catching a 600 member named Waldo, and the violence shifted targets without ever slowing down. 3 years after they buried Baby, the streets showed their hand one more time. In 2019, 051 Melly, the mentor who had taught him to move unseen, the closest thing he had to a father in that life, was killed at a party by people he trusted, betrayed the same way through the same door. The pattern was too clean to miss, and everyone who had watched Baby go understood exactly what it meant. In the end, Chicago's most feared shooter didn't get caught by police, didn't get cornered by ops, didn't get smoked on foreign turf. The mob sniper went out without firing a shot, taken down by the only people he never thought to watch. Drive down 59th and Wabash today, and you'll still find faded graffiti and candles melted into the concrete, a marker for a man who lived by a code that turned around and lined him up. His name stands now beside Scrap and Dusky, the three faces MOB calls his fallen kings, and the younger ones still try to move the way he moved, chasing the same silence that made him a legend only after it got him killed. Outsiders saw one more Chicago headline that never got solved. The block saw a lesson written in blood that loyalty in these streets comes with an expiration date, and nobody, not even the man everybody feared, gets to read that date in advance. Mo Baby's story was never really about one shooter. It's about a city that keeps opening the back door on its own and keeps killing its own hope. Rest in peace, Mo Baby.